Hey, good afternoon. My name is Karl Murphy, the CEO of Get Spiffy. Welcome back to the Mobile Service Playbook podcast series, where we sit down with leaders from across the automotive industry to share insights, lessons learned, and perspectives on the future of mobile service. Today, I'm joined by Roger Conant, the founder of the Mobile Service Alliance, and we're here to talk to Roger about the genesis of that, his career history in automotive, and sort of what he sees out there in the industry. Roger, welcome to the Mobile Service Playbook.
Carl, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I really mean that. Your request caused me to do some good thinking on level two for the Alliance, so thank you for that.
Yeah, so why don't we start with what is the Mobile Service Alliance? How did it get started, and sort of what's your vision for it?
Well, first of all, the great gift to me, being older, is the internet, and I majored in radio, television, film broadcasting coming out of school, so I grew up in a three-channel world. Okay, and it's been a real. I don't think the young people appreciate the internet enough because it gave me the opportunity to one morning wake up and become an alliance. All right. I mean, come on. You talk about empowerment. That's incredible. So the background on this is that I've had a real solid background in culture or behavioral change. I've been involved in a lot of different jobs. Some of them were a little ahead of their time. None of them were behind their time. They were always ahead of time. But a lot of that caused me to experience having to deal with culture. I don't like the word behavioral change. And what I saw with mobile service was a huge task of behavioral change for a legacy industry that really probably doesn't like behavioral change too much. So I thought, I knew the vendors already. Justin with your company, who is just not only is he talented, he's just a genuine person. You guys kind of got me kicked off in this. It's all your fault. I got into this to begin with. Okay. And so
Okay,
I knew
I
that.
guess we can take credit for that.
No, well, I'm giving you credit in a Roger way. Okay. But it got me interested. And I'll tell you, Carl, I'm at the point in my life and my career where I really want to make a change or contribute, not me, it'll be a team of people to changing something that the industry desperately needs. And I don't see anything else that can claim the word transformational out there right now, even AI, than mobile service. So that's what kind of got me into it. I thought, I've become familiar with a campaign called Discover Boating. And boating seemed to have a problem as an industry, and their association got together and started a campaign called Discover Boating. And everything I looked at in the marketplace for mobile service said, we need some more discovery. Okay. So I just launched on LinkedIn and just started uh, basically posting. I'm not a sophisticated marketer, but when I get on something and get enthusiastic, look out. And it kind of took off. I've maintained a good reputation with all the vendors. I really don't like that word vendor. Oh, it's so insulting. But let's say partners, okay? Because believe me, with mobile service, you're going to have to become a partner, okay,
Yeah,
and
for
not
sure.
just a vendor. So that's kind of what got me kicked off. I mean, I've had four careers in broadcasting, in real estate, in credit unions, which led me to retail auto, and I sold cars for a year so I could walk in their socks. But then I headed to fixed ops. So that's where I've landed. And what I'm trying to do is just develop a portal, let's say, for a resource for people to go to other than the vendor situation only. And that's where I am now.
Yeah, interesting. So, I echo your uh, observation that it's really, you call it culture change. I call it process change. Same thing. I think you come in to a successful dealership and they're used to doing everything on property. They built beautiful uh, facilities. They spent a lot of money in upgrading them in recent years. they have very large fixed ops facilities, 20, 40, 50, 100 lifts in a location, and they're busy. Um, and then to come in and say, hey, look, there's this huge opportunity in mobile, you should go do that. And everyone who's responsible or should be responsible for um, rolling that out, it's like, look, we're busy, dude. I don't need this. Like, it's hard enough managing my mechanics that I can see, right? I can't imagine sending them out in the morning and all over the countryside. And so, we talk about it, the success is really about process change, and the customers, we have a fair amount of customers, as a software and hardware provider into the industry, and the customers that are not successful, it's about the process change. Like they just don't change effectively, or I think there's this. It starts as a small part of the business, right? So especially in really big facilities where there's 100 lifts and they're doing thousands of ROs a month, to start with one or two vans, like, which is like, I think the smart way to start. It's just a small book of business. It's like, they look at it as sort of like one or two lifts, and I've got, you're now 2% of my business. And so, we spend a lot of time talking to the dealers about how important it is strategically. And quite frankly, on the sales side, if it's not strategically important to you, we sort of look for other customers because we don't want the unhappy customer, right? Or the churn customer. And so, success is really about the commitment to a mobile future. We see each other on LinkedIn. I end a lot of my posts with, the future is mobile. And I don't think for sure, more than half of dealers don't believe that today. There's just so much threats to the industry. I think there's something I wanted to ask you about. What do you see as the big themes in the industry today that people are talking about? Not necessarily mobile, but like what are the things that are creating challenges and chaos for the dealership that sort of get them distracted from doing anything beyond just trying to do it based on a sell cars and service and level shop?
Well, let me tell you why I use the word behavior, and it's a very personal thing. I've been in AA for 40 years. All right. So I got sober when I was 40. Thought I would have it all figured out and all ready by 41 or 42. And what I have come to believe through pain, it wasn't about not drinking after the first, it just wasn't about that. It was about behavior change. And there is no greater behavioral change group than AA. So
Right.
that's where I learned about behavior. This is scary. You know, we guys don't want to admit we're scared, but it's scary to go outside those four walls. You've lived in it, you're steeped in it. I think that the decision maker for fixed operations, when they're pitched a new product or a new concept or anything as substantial as mobile service, they have two thoughts. The first thought is, okay, what's this going to do for me? Bottom line, productive today, all those things that are the nature of fixed operation. The second thing they think, just as importantly, is what is this going to mess up that I changed just 6 weeks ago? Okay. Those two thoughts do battle with each other. And sometimes the thought that what is this going to mess up that I just changed with my guys wins out over any type of thought about what this could mean for more customers, longevity, customers for life, any of those things. So that's why I say change management and behavior are at the root of this. And I have to tell you, to me, that's why the first sale you sell to a dealership is not the sale. It's going to be the sale. Real sale is going to take a lot further along when you can keep them there, keep them going. Because if you're not visible and you're not on top of them for months with even the simplest process change, they go right back to where they were doing before.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so of the things that are affecting the dealer today, what are the big trends you see hitting the dealership world?
Well, competition. Listen, these guys, four guys have been on the defense for so long, they really don't know any other way. I mean, their share is losing. There are more people getting into their business, and there are more people getting into mobile service, Karl. We have a group here in Houston that's based in Houston called Christian Brothers. And while they're still an independent group, they're pretty strong. I don't have any inside information there, but I understand them. They are starting to grow a mobile operation. So competition, you mentioned the term they're real busy. The mobile that fixed operations are real busy, but we both know that busy is not always effective. Okay, and so there's so much chaos involved in the time they open to the time they close. But I think competition is their main problem right now. Getting advisors, keeping advisors, all kinds of things. It's a rough business. The best experience I got was I was hired for 3 years as customer experience manager for service only. Now, you'll never find that position anywhere. When a dealership hires a customer experience person, they hire them for the whole dealership, and they usually end up experiencing and sales. But I was hired to watch what was going on with a 12 advisor, uh, large Buick GMC dealer here in Houston. And I should have paid them for the knowledge I got because I saw every nuance and subtlety that was involved there. And I will tell you that it's going to be tough to change them. I mean, they're used to working in chaos to begin with. But, it's going to be the 80-20 rule, I believe, maybe the 85-15, where the 15% who are willing to be willing to be willing to look at something different are going to as far as I'm concerned, we haven't reached a tipping point in mobile service yet. We're still in the early adopter stage, but I think mobile service is inevitable. Hope I answered your question.
Yeah. So I agree with you, but for the audience, why do you say mobile service is inevitable?
Is it inevitable?
Why do you say it's inevitable? What's the data, the fact pattern, what's going on in the world that says it's inevitable?
Well, my wife is out of town now, but I speak to her all the time about the number of Amazon packages that arrive at my door. We're 56 years married now, so I've surrendered a long time ago, Karl. But I have to tell you, the mobile economy is all around these guys. Okay, I think it's inevitable because if they don't do it, you can't not do something that's being done everywhere else for too long in this world. It's too competitive. You're going to start to lose share, and that's why I think it's inevitable because it's all around them every day, every part of their life right now. It's just going to happen. That's all. I don't know how fast it's going to happen, but it is inevitable in my mind.
Yeah. So you worked in a dealership. What advice do you have for us on, we bring on a new customer and they're interested in starting a mobile business. Maybe they start with one van or two vans and they're buying software from us and all that sort of thing. What's the advice to a partner for a dealership on how to get that process change or that cultural change as you describe it to stick?
Well, let me start back a little further upstream. Let me share a few things that I think they need to do before they ever choose a partner. And that is they really need to take a look at the support, how long the support is, how deep the support is with the vendor they're picking, because this is going to be a long-term relationship. Like I say, there are two sales in mobile. The first one is not near as big as the second one. So I would suggest that they really take a look and clearly define what that vendor has in the way of ongoing support. And I'm talking about people. The other thing I would suggest is that they start small. And I have to tell you, I believe that recalls are the way to start in this business. I really do. For most, not the Ed Roberts of the world and this type thing, but recalls are the best way to start. So two things: choose your vendor wisely based on their level of support, and number two, once you choose a resource, start small and get that down very well, because you're going to have to integrate this into the rest of your culture or your behavior of your group. It's going to need to be integrated into sales, everything within the dealership. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. You did answer my question. So tell me what does Carvana and Amazon's aggressive moves into new car sales and used car sales as a digital hyperscaler, does that play into this at all from your perspective?
You know what? It's funny, the Carvana thing, we're still stuck in the front end getting all the play. Okay. I'm sorry. The back end is not quite the new front end yet. All right. But the Carvana, the sales end of this, to me, for instance, everybody's talking about the great Carvana, one big machine that sits in the middle of the showroom up in Dallas and Fort Worth. And it's the new way of selling cars. And I have to tell you, quite personally, I wouldn't want to be in sales these days. But here's what I've done. I've dug real deep into the Carvana model that they're using with the Stellantis dealers for the service end. They're not doing anything. Okay. I called all 7 or 8 dealers to try to see if I could get mobile service through the Carvana Stellantis dealers. And half the time I couldn't even get them on the phone. So uh, I don't, I think we're with the Carvana and those, we're still focused on the front end, and they haven't gotten to the real important part of the dealership, which you and I know is not the front end.
Yeah. So your thought is those guys are just selling cars, front end being variable ops, and then they're not, for sure they're not doing any service or fixed ops today. I just the history of e-commerce is that those guys chew up demand and they compress margin, and that puts pressure on dealerships that are selling cars. And then it just seems like at some point down the road, mobile's an ideal tool for a Carvana or an Amazon, right? Because they have the logistical footprint, they have the technological savvy, and they're clearly okay with creating new processes that the industry has either rejected and said we're never going to do this, or we don't like this, or we don't want to do this, and this thing, well, we don't do it anymore. I mean, again, I think there's been a bunch of content coming out about Carvana, and they're just they have these lots that have basically no cars on them. They're selling 700 cars a month through them. It's really just a delivery facility.
Well, if you look at Carvana, for instance, and I'd choose them over the other. You look at their background. You talk about behavioral change. Even an innovative company like them is going to have a problem with innovative change. Carvana was born from the father of the guys who's running it now, who was a what do you call it, subprime champion. Okay, that's their nature. They're steeped in that to begin with, which led them to do well with just converting to a E-type sales process. But I just don't see them fooling with. I think fixed operations has a lot more challengers than Carvana for their business. Jiffy, not Jiffy Lube, but what's the big tire distributor? They're getting into it too. Discount Tire, they're getting into mobile service too. The tire vendors are getting into this. So I don't see the Carvanas and those innovators. I think they're going to live where they are right now for quite a while. Just my opinion.
Yeah. So in summary, you think it's really the independents and the super regionals like Christian Brothers, Discount Tire, Goodyear, Pep Boys, Jiffy Lube, Valvoline, all those sort of folks. Yeah.
Well, and independent repair facilities, IRFs.
Yeah.
And there's so many of those guys now. And I'd like to see, I look to mobile service as being the first opportunity for auto retailers to finally get on the offense instead of having to play defense like they've been playing for years now. So, and like I say, this is going to be the 80-20 rule, Karl. It's going to be the same thing. You go through it, any change, It's going to be the 15 to 20% of the leadership who are willing to be willing. I also think it's going to be the younger dealer leaders because if I had been in fixed operations for 20 years or 25 years and was in the fourth quarter of my career, I'd be less likely to try something like culture change, mobile
Yeah.
service than
Well,
the other ones. So I'm looking to the next generation to really give this some steam.
yeah, I agree with you. We see that in the market. I think as you describe, owners, principals, leaders who are in the fourth quarter of their career. I'm gonna steal that one from you, Roger. It's a nice way of putting that situation. And they
Well,
sell, right? That's
Carl, I'm steeped in the fourth quarter right now.
yeah,
Okay, in my life, so there's nothing like it. It's easy when you know, so you can
yeah,
steal away. Okay.
yeah. I'm coming up on halftime, I hope, but we can argue about that.
Ah,
Um, and so what we see is, those, you know, older principals they're the ones who are selling, right? And they're selling out to either a private group that's consolidating, that's owned by or has, second or third gen leadership, right? And then, and it's like, hey, there's a 40-year-old whose name is still on the building, but they run fixed ops or they run the sales team or, they're the finance guy or gal. And it's exciting to see them, because I'm more contemporary with those folks, but for sure, I think you see a lot of consolidation with folks that don't want to do the work to elevate their game to be competitive, with Amazon and Carvana on sales, with the independents on service, with the guy down the street or from the same brand, across town, whether it's, deploying an AI call center tool to make sure that they don't miss phone calls, which seems, it's just amazing to me that you can call a place with a $500 million of inventory on the lot and no one picks up the phone, right? So
well,
um,
let me interject something here. You gave me an opening. If I was to tell you my greatest experience uh, in fixed operations, it would be that customer experience manager, but it would really be number one would be the 6 years I spent in the Group One Automotive consolidated BDC for service. About 12 years ago, Carl, the CEO of Group One Automotive said when he monitored calls at the dealerships, it made him physically ill. Okay. So he developed and committed to a huge service BDC. Nobody else was doing it back then. There's still not many of them doing it. And I got the privilege of being the oldest man and oldest person in the call center. But I took over 30,000 inbound service calls, first service calls. They all came from 100 plus dealers into that Group One centralized call center. And I got to live in that world for 6 years. And it taught me so much about retail. Between that and the time I was customer experience manager, I feel like I've almost got a doctorate in fixed operations.
yeah,
Um, but
30,000
yeah,
calls is like that's some serious volume.
well, and I have to tell you, Group One is number one in that. By the way, all of a sudden, the not only the public groups but also the big groups are waking up to the fact that the phone is just not going to be answered in a dealership, especially in a service department. And that prompts me to say one other thing. One of the things I don't see right now is a real commitment from the big groups, and I mean the big groups. Let's talk about the publics, okay? Which are the six public group, AutoNation, Group One, you know them all, who have really not haven't seen any commitment to mobile service. I'll give you a practical example. Group One Automotive here in Houston is still, I think, trying to figure out mobile service. Uh, they're steeped in fixed operation, but I haven't seen a lot of total commitment from big groups towards mobile service, and I'm looking for that to be a kind of a change too. Once get what, because these guys all follow each other. Okay, it's like dealers do. It sometimes they watch who they don't want to be the first one and they don't want to be the last one. Okay,
Right.
so I'm looking for that to happen to really give a mobile service a boost.
Yeah, well, several years ago, AutoNation bought RepairSmith, which was primarily fleet focused. They had some consumer business, but it was primarily fleet. Um, and they've had a variety of leaders in that business, and that's probably the biggest commitment. I mean, they paid a fair amount of money for it. I think the publicly reported number was just under $200 million for that, and so that was interesting. We talk to those folks all the time. They all have different cultural flavors about how they like to deal with change like this. Some are very directive, top down. Some are very entrepreneurial, sort of the group. The rooftops can do whatever they want. Um, I tell you, it's interesting. My experience, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Ford Motor Company took the initiative to put an enormous amount of capital and focus on mobile. They saw that as like mobile is the future. And depending on the estimates, there's 2 to 4,000 mobile vans out there in the Ford network. Uh, you know, 1 to 2,000 rooftops who have mobile. Talk to the consulting organizations, they tell you there's like 1,000 active mobile programs, out of 18,000 rooftops. And so I think a fair amount of those Ford dealers are, the vans sit idle a lot. Um, but Ford put a lot of capital behind it, right? And so they set the marker, and there's some complexity to it, but just roughly, it's like you get $150 a mobile experience, right? So if you go do a service, whatever you're charging for it, they're going to incent you an additional $150. And they set that marker, so it's very lucrative. They set that marker so high, I think it scared away other OEMs from creating incentives. Like, well, Ford's at 150, we come out at 25, it's going to seem like a joke. And, again, I'm sort of paraphrasing, but as I talk to everyone but Ford, Ford's like committed to the mobile, right? And all the dealers have it, and they have a variety
Absolutely.
of
Yep.
optimization, and they have their own set of issues with scale, which we talked to them a lot about. But the biggest issue with the non-Ford OEMs is, because every group, there's very few single point owners, right? Very few. They're, the small ones have 4, 5, 6, 7 rooftops, and they have a portfolio of brands. And so, there's just this, you need to meet, if you're not at the Ford level, you're not committed to it. And so then they just sort of don't want to get after it. And there's always this uh, back and forth between the Ford incentives versus the OEM whose office you're sitting in. I was on sales calls this morning, and this conversation came up. I didn't even bring it up. It's just, the GM and the director of fixed ops in this rooftop were, complaining about their Ford group and how much incentive money they get, and they can't not afford to do mobile, and they have 7 vans. There's just going on and on and on about it. And I said, well, let's go. We can get you those. Well, we're not going to get the same incentives from our brand. I said, well, you get some incentives. And I said, you can go make money without the incentives. And, I said, this Ford money, I said, my estimation based on the publicly reported data, it's like 30 million a month that Ford is paying to the franchisees. And I said, I just, in a world of, decreasing profits, the OEM level, Chinese competition, all this other stuff, I just don't see that 30 million staying around for a really long time. And so, how about we start with, we're going to make money without the incentives, and the incentives is sort of our bonus or our Christmas present, and our rainy day fund. And so we spend a lot of time talking to dealers about how they think about profitability and the incentive structure, and what Ford set as a very, very high standard. It's impressive from the outside, and it's challenging, I think, for the rest of the industry. And it's ironic. It's ironic that they planted a flag with so much capital, and then no one wants to follow it. Like they just don't, they don't see
It's not ironic in what I've learned about retail auto. It's a retail auto, Karl, is the most illogical business I've ever run into in my career. Hey, if it was logical and they had their act together, they wouldn't need you or me. So I don't look at that as a criticism of them. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
thrilled to death. I'm thrilled they don't have everything down. But I will tell you that is the nature of retail auto. Down is up is down. They're used to the way they're used to. Uh, uh, it's just going to be a trudge
Yeah.
to get this going until you can get to what they call that cavern in adoption and
Yeah.
cross that cavern.
Yeah.
It's going to be they're going to be ups and downs for the vendors, but that's just the process of implementing something brand new. And you guys have taken a big step. I was waiting to see who the Hyundai was going to mention in the way of one of you guys, okay, one of the uh, supporters.
Right.
And I was thrilled that you guys are got in on that because that's the kind of thing that will boost this past the cavern. You get in it, look, it's just like anything. They don't want to be the first one, and this is for OEMs too. They don't want to be the first, they don't want to be the last. But boy, when they start to see their competitors doing something with it,
Right.
that's when they get motivated. So the Hyundai thing is a great opportunity for you guys and for us in the marketplace and for the alliance. I'm thrilled about it. Congratulations on that. I know it was hard work.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. We're proud to be their partner, and we're looking forward to making a lot of Hyundai dealers successful in mobile. Looking forward to telling those stories. We have some case studies and some stories from the initial pilot. They did some work last year to really prove it out and to figure out what success, what drove success. And now we're recruiting and signing up dealers and getting them trained and getting them running and getting trucks out in the field. So super exciting.
Well, and remember this, OEMs and the first thing I found out when I walked into that customer experience job at the dealership, I thought that OEMs and dealers work really well together. No way. They're
Yeah,
it's a funny relationship.
yeah,
But just let me say, you guys have got all the criteria there for a good story. 60 Minutes is successful because they know how to tell a story.
right.
And marketing is stories. It's not features, benefits, any of that. And you guys have a real chance to build a story of success with that Hyundai. And that's what's going to start this thing rolling. I really believe it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I agree with you on that, Roger. We are aligned on that. So as we get ready to wrap up, tell me where do you think the mobile industry is going to be, and where's the Mobile Alliance going to be in 1, 3, and 5 years from now?
Well, I think in 1 year it's going to be it's going to be a little bit more. I don't think it'll cross the cavern yet, um, but I do think it's inevitable. I think here's what I think: customers like me and you, uh, you're not a boomer. Boomers, let's say boomers, okay? They've gotten used to the service business the way it is. We kind of surrendered to it a long time ago, okay? In other words, we we uh, we let go of wishing for change in customer experience. So the people my age and younger, and the boomers are going to continue to accept service the way it is today. The younger people are not going to. They're not going to. It's just not going to happen. And when you get more of the independent repair facilities coming around, if retail auto, it's like Ed Roberts said, if retail auto doesn't grab onto this, uh, it's going to be a sad story. So in 3 years, I see more growth. 5 years, I think we're way across. We're into the early majority. Uh, I just I just know it's coming because it's got to come. I don't think retail auto can survive without eventually evolving to mobile service. I just don't see how they can do it. It's not going to happen maybe in my lifetime, but I'm 80. So guess what? uh, so I think it's just inevitable. Look, this is the most exciting. I'm so excited about this because it's the only thing I see at where I am in my life that I can help make a change that's needed in the industry of fixed operations. And that's exciting for me. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
think
excited.
that's a great way to end, Roger, because there's a short list of things that get 80-year-old men excited, and I'm fired up that it's mobile operations in the automotive world for you. I mean, it's just it says a lot about someone who spent their career in the industry, and then something new comes along, and you're like, that's awesome. So
Well, you have a chance to claim the only transformational option out there for retail automotive. And I mean the sales end of it too, Karl. Okay, because there's no reason that a big poster shouldn't be in a showroom that says we offer, and don't say mobile service because nobody knows what mobile service is.
right.
Okay, the consumer doesn't know what mobile service is. Spell it out. We're going to get on the end of it where we can actually put stuff in the showroom and bring the sales process into this, and it would make a difference in me buying a car today, wouldn't it? You?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I'm excited about it. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell my story, and uh, thanks so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Roger. Hey, my name is Karl Murphy, and I'm the CEO of Get Spiffy, and this is another installation of the Mobile Service Playbook. We spent time talking to industry veteran Roger Conant about the current situation in the mobile service world and what the future looks like over the next 3 to 5 years. Mobile service is getting 80-year-old Roger Conant excited. He's excited almost as much as us, as the team here at Spiffy. And so thank you for your insight, Roger. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Mobile Service, the Mobile Service Playbook. Talk to you guys soon.